And what must count as perhaps the worst piece of public policy seen in modern Europe for half a century, when you compounded the already failing and flawed EU common asylum policy by saying to the whole world, please come to Europe, and we learn that 80% of those that are coming are not Syrian refugees. In fact, what you've done is to open the door to young, male, economic migrants, many of whom, I have to say, behave in a rather aggressive manner, quite the opposite to what you would ever expect to see from any refugee. And even the suggestion from some German politicians that German young women should change their dress and their mode of behaviour in the street.
Die kommen hierher und wir dürfen nicht mehr lang gehen. Junge, du aus Dinger raus hier.
We came to the place in front of the church and there were so many men. We didn't even see so many men at one place in our lives, so we recognized that something was wrong. And then 20 or 30 men, foreign men, of course, surrounded us and we couldn't even move anymore. Yeah.
You say foreign men, can you describe them? What sort of language were they speaking? How old were they?
They were about 30, 40 years old. I couldn't really say. It was dark, of course, and we thought they were Arab or something. We couldn't really describe, but you couldn't see any faces, and they weren't also speaking German, not English, not Spanish, just some language you didn't know.
Hundreds of people gathered in Cologne Tuesday night to protest against the attacks.
The perpetrators must be caught and brought to justice. Measures must be taken and we should show solidarity among each other.
Police say more than 1,000 men, many of them reportedly of Northern African and Middle Eastern descent, had gathered in front of the cathedral on New Year's Eve. In Hamburg, dozens of women were attacked in the city's red light district, also on New Year's Eve. Police are trying to determine whether the attacks were coordinated. Lawmakers have called for any asylum seekers found among the attackers to be deported.
This isn't a Europe of peace, it's a Europe of division, it's a Europe of disharmony, it's a Europe that is a recipe for resentment, and yet, faced with all this failure, both of you said the same thing today. You said Europe isn't working, so we must have more Europe. But it's what happened, I think, in Cologne, where we saw the mob. Up to 1,000 young males in the street sexually assaulting and harassing women. It is, I think, in many ways one of the most disgraceful public order events that we've seen in modern day Europe. And yet there was an attempt by the police and the press to cover it all up.
Migrant assaults on women have shocked Europe, but it may not be as new as many people think. Sweden is dealing with a looming scandal, with police accused of covering up mass sexual harassment. Leaked reports suggest Swedish police investigated the sexual harassment of girls during a Stockholm music festival 2 years in a row, and most of the suspects were allegedly migrants.
However, sex attacks by Middle Eastern migrants continue to skyrocket across Europe. It took Finnish police until Thursday to report a planned gang sex harassment romp by the migrants on New Year's Eve at Helsinki's Central Square and train station. According to police, around 1,000 young migrant men converged at the Central Square on New Year's Eve. However, the police had been tipped off that the migrants had planned to sexually harass women.
Jag känner en mycket stor vrede när jag tar del av de här rapporterna från både Köln och från Stockholm. De som är skyldiga ska straffas och jag välkomnar att en utredning nu går till botten med vad som har hänt. Det som uppdagas nu, det är en del av det våld och trakasserier som kvinnor runt om i världen får uppleva varenda dag.
And we ought to have the courage to send out a message to say these assaults must never be acceptable in any European town or city, and we'll do our damnedest to make sure that it never happens again. And just to give you an idea of how big the sea change has been, a Daily Telegraph commentator, Alison Pearson, who had said she was undecided on Brexit, she didn't have enough information, wrote this the other day. She said, after Cologne, the EU referendum is about nothing less than the safety and security of British women. We, the Euro clueless, need to woman up and vote for the right of our daughters and granddaughters to live as they choose and to smile in the street. No more Mrs. Don't Know, let's get the hell out. I hope 2016 is our year of deliverance.